It's a long conversation to talk about my life. It's a fairy tale, my life. So my family has been in Harlem. We're now in our 5th generation. It's a magical community. It's a complicated community. Some of them have well-known names. Some of the names are not that well-known, but they are magical people. And there is no community in this world that matches the magic of Harlem. I was not born in America. I was born in Jamaica. And I came to Harlem when I was 3 years old. In the main, it was a Caribbean neighborhood. And so my culture from Jamaica was around us all the time. It was just a great place to grow up in. Malcolm X was my godfather. My mentor was Percy Sutton, Honorable Percy Ellis Sutton. And there was a tutor who would come in, and his name was Mr. Hughes, and he would teach me this and teach me that. It wasn't until many years later, when I was in junior high school, that I understood that Mr. Hughes was Langston Hughes and that he was famous. To me, he was just Mr. Hughes. But the most important person was my grandmother. And my grandmother always encouraged me to think, to write, to listen. There's a key thing that my grandmother taught me: to listen. My grandmother was an activist. On 125th Street, when I was a little child coming up, black people could not get jobs in most of the stores. They could, if they went in as a customer, they might not be allowed to try on anything because they did not want the hat or the dress or the coat to be contaminated by the African hue that may come out. And that's exactly what was happening. Mr. Sutton was very active in the NAACP. And so one day, I went to meet Malcolm, and who was there? Percy Sutton. And Malcolm introduced me to him as his godson, and we formed this relationship and this bond. And what I found out from those discussions is that it was far more important to be wrong than to be right. If you are wrong and your mind is open and you're not stuck with your ego, if you are wrong, then you can learn. There's not a day that I do not remember something Malcolm taught me, Percy Sutton taught me, or my grandmother. Every day. Education was important. And at Syracuse, I majored in journalism. And in Stanford, I majored in business. Every year that I was in college, I came home to Harlem for the summer and was active in civil rights. What was important to me is to come back to my community. Percy Sutton got me a job as junior officer at the Citibank. From that point, I went to work with the government, with Mayor Lindsay, and Hope Stevens saw me when I was a young man at Citicorp and invited me to work with him. He was the first black president of the Uptown Chamber of Commerce, that then years later became the Greater Harlem Chamber of Commerce. And my view on that is I wouldn't touch the Uptown Chamber of Commerce with a 10-foot pole. And the reason for it, wherever I was demonstrating, it was against a business that was a part of the Uptown Chamber of Commerce. So I said no to Mr. Stevens. So Basil came to speak to me about this. And I said, but Mr. Patterson, you know, it's not what I want to do. And what he said to me is, okay, Lloyd, just do one thing. Go to Columbia University Library and look up the Uptown Chamber of Commerce and see what it did and what it was. And I went and studied, and I was mesmerized. The Uptown Chamber of Commerce was the sponsor of the George Washington Bridge. The Uptown Chamber of Commerce sponsored the first subway lines coming up into Harlem. The Uptown Chamber of Commerce sponsored the building of the Triborough Bridge, and on and on and on. And when I looked at that, I understood what it might be. And so I took another tact. And while I was still working with the bank and then with the government, I headed up their program committee, their community committee, kept going up and up and up and up with the Chamber of Commerce. And then when Hope Stevens left the presidency, and then years later, my icon, Percy Sutton, became chairman of the board, etc. And he groomed me to succeed him as head of the chamber. There are so many of us, unfortunately, who are of color, who get these positions and do not understand what our responsibility is when we have these positions. And so they start thinking that their name is Chase and that their name is Con Ed. But when you're not at Chase, who are you then? And when you're not at Con Ed, who are you then? And if, when you are at Chase or Con Ed, if you can be helpful to some people along the way, there's always going to be people helping out. And I was speaking to Mr. Sutton, and he told me something that is seared in my mind, and I try to pass it on. And he said, Lloyd, the foundation is the word common. And we, as people of color, need to understand what we have in common. And if we find out what we have in common, we will become communal. And if we become communal, we will communicate. And if we know what we have in common, and we become communal, and we communicate, we will have a community.